Hello, how's it going? Welcome once again to BornOptimistic. Thank you so much for tuning in. I've lost track of how many episodes there have been so far. I haven't been numbering them, but I am enjoying it. And last week was Dave Gedge from The Wedding Present, and now this week on the show is Steve Wickham from the Waterboys. I kind of feel like I'm going through all of my teenage idols and ticking them off. When I was about 13, 14, in Ballinasloe in the west of Ireland, and I dreamed of running away with the circus, the Waterboys was the circus I dreamed of running away with. I remember Mary Burke from Ballinasloe was going to Birmingham, and I gave her some money to get me some cassettes. And one of the cassettes I asked for was This Is the Sea by the Waterboys. And I'd read about the Waterboys in a magazine, and there was something about the photograph that made me really think they were going to be cool. And Mary arrived back with the cassette, and lo and behold, I was absolutely smitten. So, I'm in this small town in the west of Ireland where, nothing in particular happens. And all of a sudden, the Waterboys set up camp in Spiddle. Not the next town, but still the same county. And all of a sudden, it all felt closer. This other world of carefree abandon, I suppose. And for me, Steve Wickham, the presence in the Waterboys since the tail end of the This Is the Sea sessions, he was the spirit of the Waterboys to me, this swirling dervish who just whooped up delight and hysteria with every single move. I was always intrigued by him. I met him just once, just briefly, a few years ago. Well, before we did this interview, I thought he was a lovely guy. But when BP Fallon was on the show a few weeks ago, it was BP Fallon that suggested he come on the show, and he introduced us. And lo and behold, Steve came in to our studios in Terranure of a Wednesday evening not long ago, and we hunkered down and had an amazing conversation. I'm just about to play for you. Well, I found it amazing. I hope you do too. But before I get into playing Steve Wickham, I really want to share some good news with you. David Gray, an old friend from many years ago, BornOptimistic are humbled and honoured to be presenting a tour by David in July. He's going to be doing 4 gigs. We're doing 3 of them. On the Friday, July 21st, he's doing Castlewell in County Down, connected to their festival there. On Saturday, July 21st, he's doing St. Canice's Cathedral in Kilkenny. On Sunday 23rd, he's doing the National Opera House in Wexford. On Monday 24th, he's doing Cork Opera House. And those 3 gigs, Kilkenny, Wexford, Cork, there, BornOptimistic presents. This tour is only the second time ever that David will be touring our island solo acoustic. The last time David reckons was Christmas 95. And I think the first time he played in Whelan's, he was solo acoustic, but he says Neil McCole was with him. But getting to see Dave solo acoustic for a whole gig is something I've been waiting for such a long time. So these gigs are going to be really special. If you want to get tickets straight away, go to davidgray.com. I don't know how many tickets will be left by the time it gets to the full on sale this Friday. But very special shows, and I'm very excited about them. And they're like BornOptimistic's first events. So, not really a bad place to start, is it? Well, the Call the Dancers, the weekly Tuesdays in Whelan's, I consider kind of BornOptimistic things as well. But we'll get to all that. I now present for you a lovely conversation with a lovely man, Mr. Stephen Wickham.
Some people say to me, when did you join the Waterboys? 1985, I joined the Waterboys. And they actually got together in 1982. And believe it or not, I still feel like the new guy in the band. Even though it's only myself and Mike from that time, I feel like the new guy.
Yeah, because there was 2 albums before you joined.
Yes, there was. And I still meet a lot of hardcore Waterboy fans, who see me as the new guy in the band. They think, yeah. He's the Irish guy who kind of messed it all up and brought Mike out.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I will get to the Waterboys, but I'm very curious to find out about your life previous to the Waterboys. So You only said there a minute ago we were making the tea that you were born in Dublin.
I was born in Dublin in well, depending on who I meet in Dublin, I can say Ballyfermot or Marino or Sutton. We moved around a lot when we were kids. And I lived in Marino, my grandparents' house. And then we moved to my other grandparents' house in Ballyfermot. And then my father bought a house in Sutton, Bayside. And I was a teenager there, really. I started my band.
And of course, I can hear it in your voice, but I've heard you talk so little. I've heard you talk all these years through your fiddle. I always presumed you were a country boy.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not. I'm very much a Dublin man, yeah. I moved to Sligo 25 years ago, so I feel like an Irish man, really.
Yeah.
Rather than one or the other.
Urban or rural.
Yeah.
And when did music come into your life?
Very, very early. My grandmother bought a fiddle for 3 of her grandsons. My mother was one of 10 children. And her brothers and sisters had lots of kids, and my mother had 6 kids. But I was the eldest, and there were about one of her brothers and one of her sisters had boys at the same age as me. So there were 3 boys at the same age. We were all 3 years of age. My granny went out and bought 3 fiddles, so the story goes. And I remember getting this fiddle. My grandfather, her husband, was in the British Army, and he was a sergeant major in the British Army, fought in the First World War. And I always got the feeling that she was giving these fiddles out as if she was giving out guns. I said, "You're not going to have a gun when you grow up. Here's a fiddle." There was a kind of a protection or something. That's what I romanticise about. Anyway, to tell you the truth, Donald, I didn't like the fiddle at all when I got it. I hated it. I broke it and smashed it and hid it behind and I was a 3-year-old kid. What do you know when you're 3 years of age? Yeah. But I broke it, and it was one of these. I was kind of a secretive kind of chap, and I hid it behind the wardrobe. And my father came in, he found it, and he said, "Oh, you poor wee gobshite. Here, I'll get you another one." So he got me another one for Christmas. I was 4, and another one showed up under the Christmas tree, and I didn't know whether to be delighted or whatever. But I've been carrying it around ever since, and you can see.
And when did you start liking it?
You know, I was about 14 or 15. I really didn't like it. I had to go into lessons in the College of Music in Chatham Row. I started when I was about 5. I had a great teacher, a woman called Nell Kane. And I subsequently found out that she was the teacher of John Sheehan.
Wow.
Among other people.
Wow.
And I was talking to John about her. And she was a great character from Wickham, a beautiful teacher. And she lived near my granny in Ballyfermot. She lived in Chicor. And she got me in. My dad went up to the house and she got me into the College of Music. So I was about 7, and it was a big deal to be going down to the College of Music, you know, from Ballyfermot. Anyway.
But was there any lineage in the family? It really seems that there's a lot of support and push towards you playing music.
My dad played a bit of fiddle. Yeah, he'd gone to the College of Music. He'd taken it up in his teens. He loved it, and he played a bit of fiddle and sent me there.
And can I assume, when you call it a fiddle rather than a violin, that the oeuvre was trad? No, the oeuvre was classical, actually. Wow. Yeah, my father and me we'd sit down and play classical duets, Cali Woda and Playel and all these little fiddly duets. Wow. Yeah. That must have been amazing, get to play with your dad. It was, actually, yeah, it was. It was pretty... there's a harmony about it. I mean, he'd be giving out to me all the time. "Oh, don't hold your bow like that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Hold it up like that." My mother would be giving out to him for giving out to me. And do you reckon your dad would have liked the life that you've had, getting to make your living from music? Would he have liked the life I had? I think he would. He had a hard life, really. He was a fitter all of his life. He's still alive now, my dad. And, that's amazing to hear. That's amazing. He's 84, but he had a hard life as a fitter. Worked for the corporation, worked for CIE. His parents before him had worked in the trains, so they all worked in the railway business. And it meant, 6 o'clock. So when we were growing up, he was on that shift work. So he'd come in at 7 o'clock in the morning and sleep during the day. But would he have liked? It's a musical. I found it a tough life. It's not an easy life. No, it's not an easy life. It's a lot of travelling and a lot of. It's a tough life, actually. Do you remember ever
Do you remember a moment when you decided that this was your life, or did you fall into it? So obviously you're being pushed, encouraged, cajoled into lessons. You're about 14, 15, you say you actually get to love it?
Yeah. I had a kind of an experience, an epiphany, and I think it happens to a lot of musicians. I was, it's quite a lot of discipline in violin and college music, going to do lessons, and you have to do your scales, and you do your repertoire, your Bach, and your piece for the exams. And by the time I was, 13 or 14, I was listening to a lot of rock bands and, Summer 74 was kind of I was listening really to what the radio was doing. And I was practicing one night in the kitchen, and I was playing this Bach thing, and I closed my eyes and I started improvising. And it was playing itself. I was just holding the thing while it was playing itself. And I had this amazing a moment of freedom, catharsis or whatever it was, where it was probably to be being a teenager as well, 13 and 14, and a facility of finally announced itself and said, you can play this now without having to worry about what's on the pages or anything like that. Just, there was a direct connection, and I had the tingling, and I knew kind of something had happened. I didn't know what it was, but I knew something had happened. That's all the way I can explain it to you. Meanwhile, I put it down and want to play, a Bob Dylan song or a Neil Young song or something like that. But this thing with the fiddle, this relationship with the fiddle had changed. It had gone somewhere.
Was it because you got so good at it that you were able to?
I think that's what it was. I think I'd been just playing and playing and playing and playing and playing, and suddenly it was. I didn't.
And are you religious? Like, did you think it was like the Holy Spirit coming down?
Well, I was quite religious, so I didn't equate music with religion. No, I didn't. I didn't equate that experience as a religious experience, but I was an altar boy and all that kind of stuff, and I never equated a spirituality with that experience.
No, because the way some people say that they don't create the music, that it's just put into them and they just channel it, and that's what I was thinking of as you described the improvisation there. Were you channeling something?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. It gives, I suppose so. People would say you're speaking in tongues or something like that, but it's a version of that for an instrumentalist to be it's a release or a freedom where the universe is working through you or something like that.
And you just said there that it's a hard life. Do you have any regrets about choosing music as a path?
No, I don't have regrets. No. I did discover something recently, though, and that is that I don't think I became a musician to be a musician, if you know what I mean. I became a musician as a escape from the ordinary. I became a musician to travel the world. It was a wooden passport that got me in my band out to America with the Waterboys, out to such and such, and it was just. I never thought about the musical side of the things. It's only as I grow older I kind of appreciate that a bit more, and kind of I appreciate the fact that music is it's a wonderful life to be able to spend your life doing channeling. Most of us have a life where we actually have to put A to B, move B to C. Put that over there, and some of the music in life is like that. Some of the music in life will say, there's the dots, play that. If I was in an orchestra, it would be saying, there's Rachmaninoff's Fifth, please play that, exactly as written, and therefore I would do that, which to my mind, of course there is lovely expression in it if you get it, but to my mind that's a job of handiwork. It is a job, beautiful nonetheless. However, the beautiful thing about being having a life of music is being able to get what's inside outside.
Have you ever done that orchestra job?
I play in an orchestra up in Sligo. I play in the Sligo Baroque Orchestra.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and we have a festival in every September, and we play early music.
And do you like being an orchestra?
I love it. It's like the only way I can describe it is if you love football or something like that, and you go to a football match, you can look at it from the sidelines and appreciate the good football. But there's nothing like being in the middle of a football game and sitting in the middle of, you know, a load of strings and harpsichord, albeit playing this music that's on the page, is a lovely experience. It's a nice place.
It's the best seat in the house.
Yeah, that's it, really. Yeah.
You're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
I just think we should switch our phones off. Sorry, I just
yeah.
realised in case we get that.
Yeah, I think I did.
Not on headphones. I'll just turn mine on.
I did it.
So, would the show is called Born Optimistic? So, you know, where do you think you fit on the optimism spectrum? Or do you oscillate wildly from one end to the other, or do you?
Well, I thought about this, and I think that optimism and pessimism are two lenses of the same pair of glasses. And when you think about it, optimism or pessimism, it's about looking into the future. You look at it and you're saying, what's going to happen? If you're optimistic, you'll think that something good is going to happen. If you're pessimistic, you're thinking something bad is going to happen. But it's about looking into the future for me. Am I optimistic or pessimistic? Because I think, you know, that all depends on the specifics. You know, I play a lot of chess, and when I start the game, I'm very optimistic that I'm going to win. And as the game progresses, I can stay optimistic up until the last moment when it's checkmate.
For me, I'm getting a subtext of what you're saying, and the subtext is don't necessarily spend your time looking into the future.
Oh, absolutely, because we don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is the other thing about optimism. Optimism is a beautiful thing because it's about hope. It's about being hopeful, and hopeful is a great human, you know, condition. So it's the last human condition, as they say.
From hope comes resilience.
Is that right?
Well, I just thought of it there. It's just like, you know, without hope, what gets you back up when you're knocked down?
If you don't have hope, you're lost. Hope is the last angel in the box. Pandora opened the box, she let everything out, and the last one in there was hope. And optimism is that. So
you think sometimes about people, you know, who've had a hard time in life, and life may not have gone a certain way for them, and you think about it and you try and think why, what was it, what moment did X happen, or did Y happen that set off a thing, and sometimes it's really hard to get people back from a place they go to, you know, and like I always think that until the game is over, you know, there's something to live for.
Sometimes you have to retire, though. Sometimes you have to resign and say, listen.
Depends how you define resigning, though.
Yeah, I have played games of chess where I thought I was beaten until the very end, all right. Sorry for using the analogy.
Is chess a big part of your life?
I play 10 or 15 games a day, every day, to keep my brain going.
I would call that a big part of your life.
Would you? Yeah.
I'd probably play one a decade.
Really? Oh, yeah. It is a part of my life, then. Yes, it is. Yeah.
And how long has chess been a part of your life?
Since I was a kid, really. Yeah, we used to play it in Baldoyle Youth Club. Somebody taught me, and I played it in school a bit. And kind of go in and out. And my brother plays. We sometimes go up to the Dublin Chess Club on Parnell Square. It's been there since 1906 or something like that. Fantastic place.
And what is it about chess that you like?
I don't know. It's a kind of a. I suppose it's a bit of an ego thing. I suppose I feel like I'm clever playing it. That's it.
It depends on your opponent, I think.
Well, yeah, that's it. What is it about chess? It's fantastic. I just love it. I just love the strategy of it. I love the time spent on it. I love trying to improve all the time, trying to get better all the time, and falling into the same traps for 30 years. I play. My father-in-law lives in Canada, and he's a great chess player. And in fact, when I got married to his daughter, my wife, 25 years ago, we started playing chess together, and he would trounce me all the time, and I kept playing him all the time. Eventually, I learned enough from him to beat him, and he gave me this beautiful hand-carved Indian chess set as a token of respect. And but we play. He lives in Canada, and we play online every day.
Brilliant.
and chat at the same time.
And does chess reward the time you put into it? Or are you looking for a reward from it?
I think it just works like one of those brain, keeping the neurons moving around. Also, it's an interesting analogy. You can make a lot of analogies about chess. I think I can.
And does it affect how you see the world, how you make plans, how you process things?
Well, I realise that, for example, you might think that something is an easy move. For example, in chess, there's a lot of things where the strategy. People will sacrifice things to gain other things. A lot of that about life. You have to sacrifice one thing so to gain another thing. You sacrifice your time to become a better fiddle player. You sacrifice your energy to make your garden better, and then the payoff is the garden. But if you don't do the sacrifice, you don't get the reward. Some of that. There's some of. It's actually, strange enough, it's one of the things where you can look into the future in a particular funny kind of a way, because it's one of those things where you see you're actually glimpsing into the future. You're predicting, you're setting your opponent up to move and you say, oh, well, he does that, and I do that, and I do that, and then the future happens.
That can be comforting.
It's comforting when you know that your prediction of the future has been,
borne out.
Yeah.
Here's the thing I don't get about chess. It's all about making the sacrifices to protect probably the second most useless piece on the board. In terms of its abilities.
The most useless piece on
well,
the
the
board.
pawns the pawns can only move forward.
You're quite right.
So the second most useless piece on the board, you're supposed to sacrifice everything to move. And for me, the queen is probably the best piece in terms of effectiveness. Or the knight, sometimes it depends. But it's weird, you're supposed to sacrifice the queen and then you're left with the king, and the king can't do much, especially without the queen.
Well, you see, the better you get at chess, you realise your king can do a lot.
Ah.
Yeah, people forget about the king, they leave him in the corner. They say, oh, he can't do much. But actually the king, in the end game, as Beckett would say, the king is very important.
Well, I've always been a careless chess player. And, I played as a kid. And I still play like I'm 6 or 7. Just devil may care, bosh, bosh, bosh. I haven't really gone beyond that. Do you remember the old TV show they used to show on RTE, about 10 minutes on in black and white, when there was only RTE 1 and 2? They'd show about 10 to 10 every night and go through classic chess games.
No, I never saw that.
Oh man, when I was a kid, that was on every night on the TV.
No.
Classic chess games for 10 minutes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, this is in the era of like Czech cartoons and stuff like that.
Yeah, there was a big thing about chess in the 70s or 60s when the Russians and the Americans used it as a kind of a ploy for their Cold War. Bobby Fischer against whoever it was, I can't remember.
Yeah.
I'm sure people would know.
Freedom versus totalitarianism.
Yeah.
But it struck me when you were talking about playing chess and playing all these classical pieces on violin when you were as a kid. It feels like you could have had a very similar youth in Russia. It felt like these very kind of...
Well, I have a band called the No Crows from Sligo, and I play with a fantastic Russian fiddle player called Oleg Ponomarev.
Was he in that band years ago? No.
He was in Loiko years ago, yeah.
Yes,
he's an Irish man now, but he tells me about his childhood growing up in Russia, and absolutely no parallels. None. Whatever. And I used to love. I'm a bit of a what would you call a person who loves Russian stuff?
Yeah. Russiophile.
Russiophile.
I'll have to get him on the show and find out about his Russian upbringing.
Oh yeah, unbelievable!
Wow,
unbelievable!
Des McCullagh used to promote Loiko,
and
also promoted Cattell Koenig.
Yeah.
So I used to go to a lot of Loiko gigs because I was such a big Cattell Koenig fan. So there was a time when I went to see Loiko a lot.
Yeah.
Probably in the late 80s or thereabouts.
Fantastic stories.
So chess and the fiddle, two major passions in your life.
Yeah.
Are there any others that equal?
I keep bees as well.
Hence the album title.
Beekeeper, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you are the Beekeeper of the album title.
I don't know. I think Beekeeper is in the title of the album. I don't think it relates to me. I think I am a beekeeper. Maybe I'm looking for another career and kind of putting it out there. See if we can beekeeper and I can sell some honey.
I'm fascinated by bees. Absolutely fascinated.
They are fascinating, yeah.
How long have you been into that?
I got into it about 6 years ago. I wanted to do it when we moved to Sligo first. I have about 1.5 acres in Sligo, on the side of a hill, loads of gorse, beautiful, beautiful. A day like this is, you couldn't be in a nicer place in the world. And I wanted to keep bees, but I went to a man in Clarenbridge in Galway, and I said, a beekeeper, and I said, man, can you tell me, give me some advice about keeping bees? He said, don't keep bees. So that put me off. And,
did you say why?
No, that was it. Can I give me advice, but don't keep bees? That was it. He knew by the gait of me that I was not the right kind of guy to be keeping bees.
Why?
Maybe because I don't know, but I got the feeling that he knew by the gate of me. Also, the kids were very young, and I didn't want them to. Really, it was an excuse. I didn't want them to be knocking over hives. So when my children grew up and left, and went off to college and everything else, my brother married into a farming family in County Kilkenny, which in fact is the heart of Irish beekeeping. All the orchards down there, the apple orchards, Bulmers and all that. And has been going on since monastic times, thousands of years probably, Irish beekeeping. And they have a strain of Irish bee. There's you'll hear different people say different things about it, but they have a thing called the black bee, the Irish black bee. And if you get into beekeeping, you'll hear about different buckfast bees and Italian bees, and how these foreign bees, they're a little bit gentler. But the Irish bee is nasty. He's quite aggressive. Or she is quite aggressive, because most bees, of course, are females. And anyway, the brother married into this agricultural family, and beautiful Father Tom is his wife's uncle, and he's an old retired priest down there. And I got a call one day from Father Tom. Steve, I hear you want to get bees. I have a beehive for you. So I went down to Kilkenny. I had read a book. I'd read a couple of books about it, and I had a beautiful book by a fellow called Steiner. Steiner Schools.
Oh yeah.
Steiner wrote this amazing kind of spiritual book about beekeeping. Brutal, useless in terms of practical tips. Yeah, but absolutely beautiful. Absolutely.
And was Steiner at the root of your interest in bees, or
he was. Somebody had given me the book just prior to this telephone call.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
but going way back when you first moved to Sligo, what was it about bees? What do you think?
Well, of course, I'd read all the stuff about the collapsed colony syndrome and about Einstein. We would only last 5 years without the bees, and what am I going to do with this 1.5 acres? What?
Can you remember the very first time you met Mike Scott?
I remember getting a call living on Rackar Road from a Scottish accent saying we'd come over and do a session. No problem. Lovely. And when I met Mike, it was in his flat. He lived in Notting Hill somewhere. And I remember walking into his flat. He'd hardly any furniture, mountains of records and CDs. He had a mountain of live tapes from the gigs. He recorded everything meticulously collected. He knew every gig, and everything was perfectly well done. And he had all these beautiful posters of Native Americans, and he lived in a lovely flat. And it was all about music. It was just music. And his first thing he said, "You want some chicken soup?" Or tomato soup it was, I think. Tomato soup. So he made me tomato soup, and he played me the new record, which was This Is the Sea. And I was giving him my sixpence worth and told him my life story. We sat down and I told him my life story. And he told me his life story up until that point, and then we ambled down to the recording studio and recorded on that, and it was such a welcome. I don't mean this to sound anyway disrespectful of Intuinu or anything like that, because they're all great people and they were great friends and are still great friends to me, but at the time it wasn't It was music by committee. There were 6 or 7 of us in the band, and bass player and drummer Jack and Paul had their input into how the groove would be. Martin would have a few chord changes, and I'd throw in a middle 8, and Leslie would make the lyrics, and so the song came together in this committee fashion, which lent to a kind of a nice music scape, but it didn't lend itself to the viscera of music. And Mike was all about the viscera. It was there, and I knew about that, and we connected with that straight away, and haven't been able to, do anything else for the last 35 years.
And it's like you moved in together almost. It's like you were shacked up.
The voice, the song, it was a musical marriage of sorts, yeah, definitely. And I'd had that in a way with different people up into that. It wasn't just all of a sudden I got it. Because Huey was me and Huey had that going on when we were. Mike often says, "Oh, thanks." He said to Huey, "Listen, thanks for giving me your man," And I'd had that kind of thing. Huey went off to live in America, and I'd had it with another musician, a fellow called Vinnie Claus. He was a great singer-songwriter that I played with before. So I knew this connection between the song and what I could do to help the song. Not to take over the song, but to help it. And it's kind of like an echo, actually. Fiddle. Some people say that violin is the closest thing to a human voice. It is in its pitch. It's also in its physical proximity to the human voice because the fiddle sits here. But it's also in an emotional way. So I often think that fiddle in songs work as an echo to the voice. So you'd have the voice expressing the emotion, and then it's like the fiddle is an echo. And I suppose to a singer, when he hears an echo, he thinks he's not alone. The voice thinks it's not alone.
And what was the Waterboys about to you and Mick at that point? What was the point of it? What?
I have to say, I'll say this as well. That in Tuanua, we signed to Island Records, and they brought us into Island Records when we signed. And the guy said to us, "Oh, well, there's all the records, and you guys go in there and just grab whatever you like." So we all bailed into all these records, and I grabbed a couple of records off. I got King Sunny Ade, I remember Bob Marley record, Pete and Dud, Peter Cook and Dudley Moore was out in Island Records, which was fantastic, terrible. And I had about five records, and Martin, the keyboard player, picked out a Waterboys record. This was before I heard anything about the Waterboys. And we had our little flat. We used to have a little office in Ballsbridge, where in Tuanua headquarters were. And we put on the records. We got all our booty back from Ireland, and we played all our records. Nick Drake was another one I had. And Traffic was another one I had. Fantastic records, man alive. They were fantastic. Anyway, Martin put on, he said, "Steve, you got to listen to this. You got to listen to this." And he put on the Waterboys record. And it didn't twig with me at all. It didn't move me at all. Martin Martin thought it was fantastic, but it didn't move me. I was listening to King Sunny Ade and Traffic, but then one thing. The record is one thing, but then humans are another thing.
And what was the voyage you were embarking on? What did you think was the point of what you were going to do together?
Make a song, Well, I'm always hoping for a great song. I'm always hoping to be part of a great song. It doesn't matter,
And that big hit was there at that point. Whole of the Moon was.
Oh, that was a big hit, yeah.
That was ready. It probably hadn't been released at this point, but was ready to go.
Just before Yes, before the album came out, it was on that album. So I came out, and I played on the album. Then Mike said to me, "Listen, we're going out to America. Will you play? Will you come and play?" So I was in the Tuanua at the same time. We just finished mixing this record for Island Records, and I said, "Yeah, I'm going. I'm going to America. I know what this guy's singing about. I can feel it." And I left in Tuanua, and the shit hit the fan then. Island Records dropped in Tuanua.
Oh, because you left?
More or less. I think they did. Yeah, more or less.
Oh, shit.
Because, they did. And anyway, so I was persona. But I had all these great close friends. I had 7 or 8 great friends in Tuanua. and I left them all to join the circus.
You torpedoed their dreams as far
Well,
as
they managed to patch up the boat, and they signed with Virgin Records, and they had a great thing going, and they were probably, glad to be rid of me, really. And we crossed paths then through the years, and
the reason why I'm asking what you were doing, what you're setting off, and I'm just trying to think what it was for me as that 13-year-old in Ballinasloe. What I'm trying to remember back. What was it about the Waterboys that just felt so special?
Well, I don't know. Was it the fiddles? Was it the Celtic spirit? Was it the there was something Celtic about it. I mean, Mike's, Scotsman, and connected very much with Ireland when he came over to live, and he connected with the music. He fell in love with. He's a great sponge of music. He listened to whatever it is at the time, country music, jazz, whatever he's into. He'll go into it so deep, and he'll pick the bones dry from that genre, and he will take it all and absorb it and assimilate it and move on with his musical journey. For me, it's about violin playing. It's about learning a bit Bach, and about learning how do I do this and how do I do that and what's going on there. There's a different musical book I have open. He has another one open, and he went into Irish music in a real deep way, and it actually dragged me kicking and screaming into it as well, because I wasn't an Irish traditional player. I played a bit of traditional, but I came from classical, and I was listening to Lou Reed and electric fiddle. So Vinny had played a bit of traditional, and I'd learned tunes off Vinny, and I couldn't believe that Vinny could know so many tunes. But when I met Mikey, he said, you got to listen to this, you got to do this. So he sent me actually down to Kerry, and I went down to Kerry to live with Cooney and Begley, and I spent some time with them to learn a tune. And then he said, you need to go and learn some more. So he sent me down to Doolin. So I was on a paid, sabbatical to go to Doolin for 2 weeks in a cottage to learn more about Irish traditional music. And I met Sharon Shannon down there, who was, kid playing in the local bar.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
That's true.
Wow, I'm absolutely flabbergasted. Wow. So he was the one who brought you to Irish music?
In a deep, meaningful way, yes. Of course, I had Irish music, I had the Irish washerwoman, and I didn't grow up in an Irish traditional tradition. It didn't. It was classical music, and we had tunes. I had, and I had a few tunes. I had, a rake of tunes, but not. I'm a dub, and I'm rock tradition and classical.
So the bit of the Waterboys history I think that fascinates me the most is Spittle.
Spittle, yeah.
And the recording of Fisherman's Blues and all that went around that, because I grew up in Ballinasloe, and you had to pass through Ballinasloe to get to Connemara. And the fact that this group that I loved, that I'd sent to Birmingham to get the cassette, and they make this amazing music, become a big hit, and all of a sudden, word starts filtering through that they'd decamped 50 miles down the road.
Well, that was part of that. I went to Kerry, then I went up to Doolin, and I think it was more or less the time that I was in Doolin that Mike had come west. You'd have to talk to Mike about why he came west. I don't know. I do know that he went on the road with John Dunford, who was our sound man, and they went driving all around the west of Ireland to try and find a place to record. We had been recording Fisherman's Blues in Wimble Lane Studios, where I had worked with U2 on the U2 record, and it's a fantastic studio. It was a fantastic studio then. So we had a great time in there. We were in there for a long time. But how Mike got to the west of Ireland, I don't know. I think he got more and more into traditional music. We'd been hanging out in Temple Bar and going into that beautiful music shop there, Claddagh Records, and just buying all the records and buying a lot of old gospel, American gospel songs and traditional stuff. And So he got more and more into it and more into the arcane nature of it. And so we went around the west of Ireland, and John Dufford brought him around, and he met Charlie Lennon, who was the great West of Ireland fiddle player from Leitrim. And he stayed in Charlie's house. Charlie rented out his house in Spittle, while John had found this house called Spittle House, which was kind of a falling. Well, it wasn't falling down, but it was. The lady who owned it, Mavis Buckley, was the lady who owned it, and she lived in one room in this house. It was kind of crumbling in on top of her, and these rock and roll musicians offered to pay her rent for a couple of months. There's probably more to it than this, but basically that's it. And she was known to Alec Finn, who was the bouzouki player from the Teuton, and then he suggested Mavis, and Mavis, to our great delight, allowed us to use this beautiful house. I don't know if you've ever been in Spittle. It's still there, of course. It's owned by another man now, and it's turf smoke. This back in the 80s, everybody spoke Irish. It was the heart of the Gaeltacht. It's not so much now, heart of the Gaeltacht. And I kind of knew that Ireland a little bit. Being an Irishman, I kind of knew it a little bit. Completely mad world, I think. Not mad, a completely exotic world to, Mike and Anto and the other musicians. John Dunford knew it a bit. He spoke Irish and that.
I never knew John spoke Irish.
He was a teacher, used to be a teacher.
I didn't know that. Yeah. Wow, I didn't know that. I guess for me as a teenager, it just opened up a world of possibilities. This thing that I was really into from another country, the Waterboys, was all of a sudden in my county.
Oh, yeah.
In Galway, the west of Ireland, and it's there, and it just kind of went, what? That could be here? And then I'll never forget the first time I heard Fisherman's Blues in that 2FM gig in the park opposite Leisureland, the same summer he supported Simple Minds, and it's just like, it just felt like Galway was the central universe. The same afternoon, The Stunning had played earlier, and I heard them for the first time, and all of a sudden, I didn't feel like a kid who was grown up in the middle of nowhere anymore.
Right.
It's probably why Fisherman's Blues is so important. Apart from I love the music. It's kind of interesting.
Well, we were just into, making music like the records that we loved. We were wanted when we were into the Stones. We were into Iggy Pop. We were into Bowie. We were into all the stuff that every band must listen to. We were going through it all, and when we sat down together and we were able to play, we just played. We didn't matter whether 1 minute we were playing rock, or 1 minute we were playing trad, or 1 minute we were playing a gentle song, or whatever. It was just all flowing out through us, and we were enabled, I suppose. There were a lot of people around us enabling us. We didn't know that, of course, but there were a lot of people really enabling us, helping us, protecting us, I think.
It's amazing that all the years later, when all the albums of bonus material come out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We had great fun a couple of years ago. We did that 25 years, and, there was so much stuff for the Waterboys recorded. And a lot of it was absolutely great, and probably should have been on the first album and didn't make it, etc., etc. But, they're only songs, really,
Yeah. Yeah, it's mad, the whole mythology around it. Yeah. 35 years you've been in the Waterboys, you say?
Yeah. Wow. Well, 1985, 30 years, isn't it?
That's
32,
amazing.
yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What are the highlights for you? What are the highlights? What are the things that when you think back, what are the bits that you find zipping out of your memory? You go, oh, look at me, remember this time. Look at me, remember this time.
I don't know. They're all highlights. Jeez, do I have any highlights? There was a golden age when we were when Fisherman's Blues came out, we were playing all these stadiums. But in the meantime, we've made some amazing music even in the last 5 years. Been working with great American musicians down to Nashville, touring. You know, people. The kind of the light somehow goes off. You know, the people that have a memory that Fisherman's Blues was the big golden thing, and of course it was. We were young and, you know, doing our thing, but we've done so many great things in the meantime. You know that.
Who did you record in Nashville? Was that a country thing?
No, it's kind of a bluesy country. The last record was called Modern Blues, and we went and we were playing with a great bass player called David Hood, who played in the Muscle Shoals band and the Muscle Shoals group. And he came out on the road the first time. He hadn't been out on the road 25 years. He used to play with Traffic, and David was an amazing musician. And we Brother Paul from Memphis, Tennessee, who wears a Willie Mitchell suit that he got from Willie Mitchell. We've had an amazing drummer, Ralph Salmons, and great musicians. And, you know, so there's a lot of highlight. The highlight happened, you know, musicians, especially musicians, we live between the notes, Donald. And a lot of times, you know, as a musician, you're between that note and the next note. And you're so close in on it that actually you never get to see it. You never get to see it from another distance at all. So my experience of being in the Waterboys doesn't relate whatever to the experience of being outside of the band.
It's just like right at the very start you spoke about music being tough at times, and yet all of your memories and experiences in retrospect seem positive.
Yeah, they are.
So when you speak about when you said earlier that it can be tough, like what were you referring to?
I think it's tough on relationships. I think that you spend the necessity of being a musician means you have to travel in general. You have to do a lot of traveling to make a living. You can be a musician and be a farmer and not have to travel. That's a different life. But to be a musician and go out and you know, do your thing to the world, you have to do a lot of traveling. That's tough on relationships. That's one. The physicality of traveling is another thing. The other thing that I find difficult also is that, especially, you know, when you're kids and your family, is that you have your community that you live in, and you relate to that community, and you have a dynamic in that community, and you're constantly leaving that community to go away for periods of time, and so the community moves on, and it's never quite in exactly the same place that you left it when you come back to it. And it's always a challenge. Whether do you try to get back into that community, or do you accept this kind of isolation? And I never liked the isolation. I don't like the isolation. So I have to scramble back to the community somehow every time I get back.
It's like you're away and somebody died and they didn't tell you, and you find out 3 weeks later the person's died.
Something like that, probably. Yes.
I used to hate that when I go away and someone would have died and I wouldn't know.
Or something's happened in the community. Somebody's had an achievement, or somebody's had a bereavement, or something's happened that you're constantly an outsider. You're constantly. Elvis Presley sings about it. He says, "I'm a stranger in my own hometown." It's not about being famous or anything like that. It's just it's this business of going away for protracted periods of time and coming back. And wanting to, for example, I might want to be part of the Beekeepers Club, but they've had 4 meetings in the meantime, and I don't know what's happened with the colony collapse disorder. Or I might be part of a chess club. I came back, your man's got very good, I didn't even see it. Whatever. Or I could never teach kids, for example. I would like to teach children, but I'd never be there long enough to be able to do it. So that's tough, but of course, that's life.
And what's your solution for that at this point?
There is no solution. No.
You seem to dearly love Sligo.
I do, yeah, it's beautiful. The land of heart's desire.
There is something very special about it.
It's the west of Ireland, I think. It's the Atlantic. It's the edge of the world. It's the sun goes down there a little bit long. We get a little bit more sun before the rest of Europe plunges into darkness. You've got that little bit just there.
I feel really weird that we're sitting here talking, and I don't know what your album's like because I haven't listened to it.
Oh,
you
yeah.
just gave it to me.
I did.
And I don't really talk to people about music anyway because I find it difficult to talk about the actual music. But it's your second solo record. It's 10 years since your first solo record.
Yeah.
It is putting your own thing out there after so long in a band. Is it a difficult thing for you? Like,
it's part of I've always written tunes and songs ever since I was, started making music, and with varying degrees of success. And I've normally, my creative juices go into the project I'm in, if it's part of a Waterboys song, or working on a movie, or helping out with a bit of theatre, or in the No Crows, or whatever band or whatever project I'm involved in. So all my creative juices will go into that and be recognised, and that's great. I'm happy with that. But the odd time I'll do a whole song or a whole tune myself, and it sits there, and No Crows don't want it. They've enough tunes, or it's a bit odd, or something like that, and or a song. It's where I'm quite eccentric, actually, Donald. I'm quite eccentric in my musical oeuvre, and the eccentricities manage to find themselves. They sit there and they say, "What are you going to do with me? What are you going to do with me?" I'm holding my hand up to my ear now, like a parrot. What are you going to do with me? And eventually, I have to answer them and just stick them all in the same box and put them out. And luckily, I do it every now and again.
So there's no anxiety involved. You're not nervous because it's going out in your name as opposed to somebody else's, or it doesn't add to the...
There is a little bit of that. I'm not worried about what people think about it. Of course, I like that people would like it. I was worried about what I would think about it. And putting this one out, I'm really happy, actually. I'm really happy that I got it, and that it doesn't feel like it belongs to me anymore, which is a lovely thing. I looked at the record and brought it home the other day, and it feels like it was a gift for me, if you know what I mean, and that's what it feels like.
You don't seem to beat yourself up that much in general. You don't seem to tie yourself in knots about
why
stuff.
bother?
Yeah,
why? Life's too short, I think.
It's great. It's great to be that way.
I think it's the only way to be. Why would you? There's enough stresses and strains from the time you open your eyes in the morning till the time you close your eyes at night, with your own imposed interior stresses and strains. It's a tough one to get, but deal with the stresses and strains that the exterior will put on, and then if the inside is stress-free, well then you've more energy for that, I think.
Absolutely. And have you always felt that way, or is it something you've
No,
learned?
I haven't always felt that way, actually. It's a maturity, I suppose. No, I'm very generally I'm trying to win the game.
But you're still learning the fiddle after 50-something years of playing. I mean, you're still learning how to live as well, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think complacency is probably the enemy of progress.
Or the joy of living.
Once you start to think you've got to figure it out, there's probably something coming around the corner to bite you in the arse.
Well, something will come around the corner. Is that there you get to optimism. Is something going to come around the corner and bite me in the arse, or is it not? I'm optimistic.
I'll tell you the one thing I love about the name of the show, BornOptimistic. It plays well on Google. I didn't think about this before, but when you search for BornOptimistic, not that much comes up.
Oh, good.
Which is kind of cool in this day and age.
And are you an optimist?
Yeah, I mean, yes, externally, fundamentally.
It sounds vaguely Masonic to me.
God, no, it's kind of like...
Born optimists.
Yeah.
Like the what do they call them? The one of those societies.
Yeah, secret society.
Of the Born Optimists. We should put hats. Have you got a hat?
It'd be great. Or some trippy carpets. Have you been to the Masonic Hall?
I have.
The carpet is just the most amazing carpet in the universe.
Yeah.
That carpet alone, you'd be like, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay,
the eyes, the red and the green, is there something like that? I can't remember.
Spirals.
Yeah.
It's like, where do I sign up?
Yeah.
If you're cool enough to put down major money on that carpet, I'm in.
Yeah.
Hook me up. Hook me up. Any club that's got a carpet like that, I definitely want to be a member. Not this particular one,
no.
but the carpet in the Masonic Hall on whatever street is it, Molesworth Street, is a sight to behold.
They opened it, myself and Mike went in about 1987. They opened it for the first time to the public in 200 years. And this man with a North of Ireland accent brought us in and led us around the lodge. And up we went through all the floors, and it was like some magical place. And, I don't know what place that has in our funny world.
Well, I kind of see it as like an adult version of the Boy Scouts. In a way. I was there. Eamon Carr did launch one of his books there, and I was there. And the funny thing was supposed to be a secret society on this, but in one corner of the building is all the pigeonholes for people's mail.
Oh yeah,
with their names underneath the pigeonholes.
Oh yeah, that's very secret.
So we were looking at the names of every single person who's in the Masonic Order in Dublin, and I was just like, I thought it was kind of cool, and it felt kind of sweet. It didn't feel. I liked it, and the people were nice. It was a lovely, nice people, nice buzz, lovely to deal with. Like, it felt like a cool. I tell you, it didn't feel like being in some presbyteries I've been in. Or
I know,
it had a nice buzz. It was. I liked it.
Yeah.
The building. I didn't come away with a bad feeling towards it. I came away with a good feeling towards it.
I have to admit, total ignorance. I've known nothing about the Masons and nothing at all about it. Except I love the symbolism, whatever it means. I don't know, but I love the symbolism of it.
There's an amazing article in the paper the other day about how religion is like virtual reality without computers. And that we're playing this game where we're trying to get these rewards that get us to the next level, which is heaven.
Yeah.
And we're all running around collecting these things. And I was just reading with my jaw hanging down. This is the most amazing takedown of religion I've ever read in my life.
I was thinking about it on the way in. I was thinking, here we are, born Christian, Catholic, obviously. And we get ingrained with the idea that we're all sinners and that Christ died for our sins. So we're naturally bad people from the start. So we've got that crushing thing, born with original sin. So that's a bad start. And then you get the Jews, for example, and they will think that no, the rest of the world is sinners. We're not. We're the chosen people. The rest of the world is sinners. So they have a kind of a thing. And then you get the poor old Muslims who think we're sinners, and the rest of the world is sinners too. And then you get the Buddhists who don't give a damn. They would say, well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't feel like a sinner at all. You know, the only thing I think is that whatever thing you do, you have to live with the consequences of it. And when you talk about community or whatever, like if you do anything to somebody, you've got to face
karma,
up to that.
Yeah. Well, do you believe in karma?
I believe that if I do something that I'm not happy about, that I will pay the price for that in terms of my own conscience. And so I think it's important to try and keep a clear conscience for your own sake. And Steve, I'm so grateful for your time. And
thank you for having me, and it's been gas to chat.
It's been great to spend time with you. And I've no doubt. I can't wait. I can't wait to listen to the album.
Isn't it amazing when you sit down with somebody and you learn lots of things about them that you wouldn't otherwise know? I mean, Steve Wickham isn't someone I knew before this interview in any context other than being a fan of his, but really into chess, really into beekeeping, and obviously really into the fiddle, even though it took him a while to get into it. I love it. I love sitting down with someone knowing you're going to just have that hour-long conversation and the time is boxed off, and that's like where it is. I actually find myself... Next week's show is Monday, who's a dear friend for quite a long time, but getting to arrange this interview was the first time we've spent an hour together in such a long time. So I think I'm going to find myself kind of trying to arrange interviews with people just so I'm guaranteed that hour, I'm going to start interviewing friends that aren't famous as well, and we may not even broadcast it, just so I'll go, oh yeah, let's just spend an hour having a chat, knowing that nothing will interrupt us. Maybe that's something everyone should do once a week. Pick one person in your life and say, okay, let's do this. Let's have an hour-long conversation. Let's make that time. And you know what? I wouldn't be offended if you took the hour that you spend listening to BornOptimistic, which I'm really grateful for, but I would not be offended at all if you took that time and spent it listening to a friend of yours. And maybe even record it if you want and share it with the world. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to Art19, Team Zodo Paddy, Snow Furnace, BornOptimistic crew, and of course RTE. Until next week, bye. Thanks a million.